Welcome to Top Tier Wrestling, your ultimate destination for all things AEW and WWE. Whether you're a hardcore wrestling fanatic or just a casual viewer, we've got you covered with the latest news, in-depth show reviews, and our unfiltered opinions on everything happening in the world of professional wrestling. Join us as we dive into the high-octane action, dramatic storylines, and backstage buzz of AEW and WWE. Get ready to step into the ring with us and stay on top of the wrestling world. This is Top Tier Wrestling. Welcome to the Top Tier Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Dawn the Dominator Delight, and this is my tag team partner, Josh Jawbreaker Justice. We're the dynamic duo that's here to body slam your ears with top-notch wrestling talk. Tonight's topic, AEW Dynamite. Let's go, baby.
Boom. I love it.
Yep.
Welcome, everybody. As she said, tonight we are reviewing AEW Dynamite from September 11th.
And I have coffee.
And that's always a good thing. So, Dynamite actually was a pretty excellent show. Just to say that up front. It began the night with a recap of the attack that occurred by, I guess, Jon Moxley and the Blackpool Combat Club, or whatever they are. I'm not even sure if they're still the Blackpool Combat Club after the events of All Out.
Neither am I.
But
But Jon Moxley just kind of wanted, I guess he was trying to give us further explanation for his actions and for what he wants. Kind of. Apparently, kind of. Apparently, it wasn't to beat the snot out of his bestie. Oh my God, Brian. He didn't really want to do it. Yeah, he didn't want to do it, but he had to for reasons, because the company, man, and you don't understand.
Well, and it while there's still more questions than answers, there at least seemed to be a through line. Because after recapping the attack Jon Moxley perpetrated on Bryan Danielson, he cuts into a promo where he said diplomacy has failed, and now it's time for war. And he says he's tried it Danielson's way. It didn't work, and it's clear that the only way forward is for Moxley to be on top. And kind of went on a tirade about how the company wasn't what they all envisioned, and now Moxley and his new band of merry men are going to get it there, I guess. Again, they're being cryptic. There's a whole lot of like, we're going to burn it down and it only works if we're on top, but they haven't quite said precisely where it needs to go or what they're trying to achieve. Just that they need to be, and more specifically, Moxley needs to be the king of the land if they're going to get it there.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting promo. I feel like it's helping to answer some of the mysteriousness that's been going on with Moxley and like Mina Shafir and the new version of what, until they say otherwise, I don't know what to call them, but the Blackpool Combat Club.
Version 2.
But now it's Claudio Castagnoli, the Bastard Pack, Mina Shafir, and Jon Moxley. And it looks like obviously Bryan Danielson is out, and it seems like Wheeler Yuta is as well.
Yeah, the BCC V2.
Yeah, version 2. Yeah. The meaner edition, I guess. I
have no idea. No, I have no idea where they're going with it. But that's not to say that I'm not here for it. I'm here for it.
I'm definitely curious, even though I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking at yet.
Yeah. I haven't figured it out. I've cocked my head to the side. I've squinted. I've dimmed the lights. I've raised the lights. I don't know what I'm looking at, but I still like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, it looks like they seem to have something against like the goofier elements that go on in AEW, at least from the little bit we've seen between, I want to say, I can't remember if it was Dynamite or Collision of last week when we first saw
Were
a
they?
flicker of it,
Oh yeah,
where
I
they
think.
attacked the Outrunners after they had
What was
gotten their
that?
first win.
I think that might have been Collision. I think. I don't. It was a fresh anger that I had with Moxley, so I
Yeah.
think it was Collision.
And so I think we saw him again on All Out, where he made an all out attack. Prior to that, he had shown up and simply asked to speak to Darby Allin, saying he
Yeah.
just wants to talk. And so we're like, oh, what's he after? And we'll definitely dive a little deeper into that later, because there is a Darby Allin segment and another segment where Moxley's new reformed Blackpool Combat Club V2 sort of appears again. But it seems like they are after anybody whose ego is too big, and I can only assume the goofier, funnier portions of AEW, like, you know, they're
Yeah.
kind of going after them.
Yeah. Uh, man, I'm so scared to say the initials for Blackpool Combat Club.
Right, right.
It's
Yeah, I
it's so easy.
maybe just Blackpool even works, but again,
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
not
go.
even certain if that's still applicable or if they're just this
Yeah,
whole new faction we're waiting to hear a name on.
yeah. You know what? Maybe they'll be cool and just not give themselves a name. Um, again, I'm here for it. But good opener.
Yeah. And it seems like at this juncture, I couldn't tell you honestly if this is a reformation of Blackpool Combat Club or if it's something entirely different. Like,
Yeah.
if Blackpool is done and now they're on to their own new faction that seems very hell bent on taking over.
Yeah.
To what end? Not sure yet,
I think
but
we'll
I'm
find out.
curious.
I think we'll find out soon.
Yep. But after that particular opener, we then go to Tony Schiavone, who is standing in the middle of the ring and pretty straightforwardly welcomes the patriarchy. I remember watching that and thinking, because usually Schiavone will say something snarky about Christian Cage or the patriarchy, and instead he gave them a clean open. And I was like, well, that was mighty nice of you, Schiavone. I mean, nobody likes the patriarchy, so I'm a little surprised he didn't take a little shot at him. But Christian comes to the ring and, you know, he does that. I'm hip. I'm with it. I hear the kids are saying I have infinite aura.
Yeah.
And
Which.
that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And so he says something to the effect of Kill Switch finally showed him what he wanted to see, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, that's understanding in his eyes that he is a monster and that's what he needs him to be.
Yeah. And that he
And the
belongs to
whole
Christian.
yeah, and the whole crowd starts chanting Luchasaurus, and Kill Switch is like holding his ears, and Christian is like, his name is Kill Switch. And that just made him chant it harder, so it was pretty great.
Yeah. Oh, and God,
And
Christian made a. What was the joke? He made a CTE joke.
yeah,
Yeah, he said he was gonna beat Danielson so bad that he would wish that Bree had CTE. And yeah.
yeah,
Because that's
that
Christian, man. That's Christian. What else can you say? Like after he says something like that, there should just be like a little tone that's like, "But up, that's Christian." You know, I mean, that's
right.
him.
It should just be wong wong. But
Wow.
but yeah,
Yeah.
other than that, Christian pretty much just cuts a promo on Danielson, who is, as near as we can tell, after the events of All Out, probably recovering either at a local medical facility or at home.
Yeah.
So, big tough guy there, tough Christian, telling Brian Danielson that he's coming for him now that he's late. Brian is laid out by
Yeah.
Moxley. But he goes on to say he'll be the next reigning, defending, undisputed AEW World Champion. And I'm like,
And boy,
barf.
that's cringe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a. Ugh.
Yep. Now, I will say this. In prior podcasts, I've said some people that I'm not a fan of, and I won't reiterate it at the risk of repeating myself. Christian and the Patriarchy, I don't like in the kayfabe. Like
Right.
they are those heels, but like Nick Wayne is actually very talented. Kill
Yes.
Switch is underutilized, and Christian is a veteran of the ring for a reason. So my dislike of them is purely in the kayfabe for the characters they are portraying. Unlike Don Callis, who no matter what character he was portraying would still be a walking thumb. And on that note, the next segment is Renee talking in the back with Don Callis and the
With
Don Callis
Thumbhead.
family with Thumbhead. It's Rennie Packet and a thumb.
Rennie Packet.
And him and Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita
Will
are all
Ospreay.
standing there with Will Ospreay. And Callis suggests that Ospreay should join Kyle Fletcher in what would be the main event for the night, which is a tag team casino gauntlet match.
Yeah.
And initially, Ospreay is like, "Hey, cool story, and thanks for the help earlier in my career, but my hands are kind of full defending the international belt." And
then Thumbhead was like, thumb, 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 thumb. I'm sorry. Actually, let me translate. What he said was that,
translate.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but, since you did bring it up, I did do you that favor. That's solid. And I guess this is me asking you to do me a favor back. And then Fletcher chimed in and basically pleaded with Ospreay to help him with this, because he was just so tired of getting so close and then not being able to reach it. And then nobody knew him as a tag team partner better than Ospreay, and eventually Ospreay was gonna he was gonna say yes to this.
Yeah, and Ospreay does. And to that end, Kyle Fletcher is going on and on about like there's literally no one in the world he'd rather win these belts with than Will Ospreay. And I'm sitting there thinking, what about your tag partner from Aussie Open that's been out on injury? Man, I'm sure he's gonna catch wind of that and think this is great.
He's watching that going, hey.
Oh man. He's going to come back. His gimmick is going to be chopped liver, and he's going to be a new tag team partner for the Scapegoat. So it's Scapegoat and chopped liver.
Oh, Lord.
Lord. That after that leads us into the first match of the evening, and they are like coming at you with a championship match right out the gate. And it's going to be AEW's TNT champion Jack Perry versus Leo Rush with Action Andretti accompanying.
Yeah.
And as predicted, Rush tries to get things going. But if I remember correctly, I think Jack Perry jumped in pretty quickly. I think that was the match where I said, in reference to Vinny Vinci over on, I think it was SmackDown, trying to take his, I think it was a sweatsuit jacket off and getting like insta-pinned by was a schoolboy from Apollo Crews.
Yeah.
And So Jack waits for Leo Rush to kind of like Leo goes to the corner and appeals to the crowd. And then the second he kind of drops down from the corner and before the bell has even rung, Jack Perry has like run to and smashed Leo Rush in the corner and kicked him into paste and then proceeds to casually take his leather jacket off.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, man, that's what Vinci needed to do. Now
Yeah,
we
that's
know
how you
how
do that.
he can get out of that sweat jacket without, getting pinned instantly. He has to immediately obliterate his opponent so that
Yep.
he has the time to casually remove his jacket and sweatpants. So there you go, Vinci. If you happen to hear the podcast or watch Dynamite, there's your plan.
Yep.
Um, but after that, Perry kind of is in control of the match with Leo Rush, as is typical of a Leo Rush match. He always sort of fights from underneath, and they're fighting and they're going back and forth. And at one point, Perry takes a cheap shot at Action Andretti at ringside, and Andretti looks like he wants to retaliate. And I guess Perry gets back into the ring, and Andretti just sort of obviously in front of the ref, like it wasn't tricky or sneaky, but he just sort of obviously jumps in to grab at Perry's leg and gets himself instantly ejected by the referee,
Yeah.
which sort of tells you where this is going now, right? Because now that Andretti is ejected, it's just Leo and Perry. And while Rush was trying to use his speed to, kind of one up on Perry, Perry outmaneuvers him. And long story short, this was the match where Jack Perry took a lot of Kenny Omega's moveset.
Oh, yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
there's a point where Jack Perry starts hitting, was it 2 or 3? I think he got off 2, but
Yeah.
tried for 3 of the Snapdragon Dragon suplexes.
Yeah.
And I mean, props to Perry. I know you're either paying homage or mocking Kenny Omega, one or both. But you nailed those Snapdragons. They were very good. And then Leo Rush, I think, fights out of the third one and hits a Poison Rana,
Rana.
which
Yep.
was pretty nasty looking. And but then Perry goes ahead and does a running like knee
Regal knee.
to Leo Rush, and I think also at one point hit something akin to a V trigger, and basically after those 2 knee shots, it's over for poor Leo Rush, and Jack Perry wins the match, maintaining his TNT championship.
Yeah.
And
Really, not really
Go
much
ahead.
to harp on about this particular match. Like I think it made Perry look really good. It made him look uh he looked like a comparable competitor. He was to the point. He was smooth with it. Methodical. Like he showed that he was really smart. So I don't know. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it was I think it was a solid 7, 8. Pretty good match. It was a pretty good match.
Yeah. I'll agree. It was a solid match. I still think I would like for Jack Perry to, and I mentioned this in our All Out coverage. I would really like for Jack Perry to, sort of solidify his character and his identity and his move set. Because like he seems to be using a couple of times now he's used a running knee that looks more reminiscent of, say, like Bryan Danielson's Psycho knee. But in that match, he was using like that and something akin to a V trigger, as well as the Snapdragon suplexes of Kenny Omega. And so it's like Jack Perry is like Franken wrestler. He's
He
like
is.
stitched together parts and pieces, like not just with his move set, but with whatever character he's trying to evoke. Like, are you trying for like Bray Wyatt or a bit of the Undertaker? Like, who are you trying to portray yourself as here? And
I'm
he,
not
he
sure.
tries
Maybe.
being cryptic because
Yeah. Maybe.
after the match was over,
Mm.
Alex Marvez in the back tries to catch a quick word with him, and Perry is just hauling, to his little weird black bus. And Perry says something like, "People like him are crucified in this life so they can be worshipped in the next." And then he hops into the scapegoat bus and just drives off.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I
I'm
I remember
I'm really
going, huh?
confused. Yeah, exactly. Like that sounds cool, but what does that even mean?
I mean, it
You
sounds
know?
cool, but like if you know that, like if anybody using that logic, if anybody knew that this life, the life that they lived right now, was only so that when they go to another life after this one is over, that they would live far better, 100 times better than how they live now. You know,
Right?
how many people would honestly stick around? I mean, honest, you
Why
know
are
what I
you
mean?
still here then?
Wait a minute. Like, so you're proving to me. You're proving to me that like life after death exists. Okay, and and that it's already predetermined that when I leave this one, I'm gonna have a solid, super sweet, awesome one. Okay. No, no,
Right? Then
no, no.
let's
I'll be right back. I'm not going into traffic.
right. Then let's make this one a quick squash match so that we can get to the good stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that means. Like, just kind of taking it at face value, it's like obviously Perry calls himself a scapegoat, so he feels
Yeah.
like he's just meant to be screwed over so that he can be appreciated next. So I don't know if that's like a direct analogy to like this life or if he's talking
Yeah.
about like maybe this gimmick so that the next gimmick will be super over. I don't know, but
I don't know. I
it
don't
was
know,
just
man.
weird and cryptic, and again, that sounds like something that you would hear come out of at the time, back in the day, Bray Wyatt, and now like something that you could hear Uncle Howdy say.
That to
And
me
it's like,
sounds like so like that right there sounds like something that 21-year-old me would have heard right after hitting a bong and would have been like mind blown like
that's
like
so deep.
some stoner last night was like bars, bro.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe that's how he came up with it.
I'm
He
like,
was doing something, and then it inspired him, and he was like, I'm gonna hit that line on the next Dynamite.
I wonder how many people made that their put that on their X account or something. Like that
Right?
was
That's
that was like their
Joe
status on
Perry is
Discord.
so right.
Now they're not
Joe,
gonna say where they got it from. They're gonna write it like they just came up with it. Like it's so deep. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
that's like their.
immediately.
I'm gonna show my age. The young people set the Facebook accounts, the
Oh
Facebook
my, it's your
statuses,
Facebook status.
the
Oh, I'm certain
Instagrams.
that definitely sounds like it would be something that like Jack Perry now on his social media, that would be his account status. Account status martyred. Um
Martyred.
so anyway, I'm not sure where the scapegoat is trying to go with this character, but I do hope it congeals soon, because while it's kind of interesting seeing it formulate,
Yeah.
it's not going to stay that way if it continues not to formulate. Like, I need to see them going somewhere with it, or I'm going to ask that they stop the bus and let me off.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm still on his creepy bus. I'm still there. He makes no sense. He sound. You know what he sounds like sometimes? He sounds like that guy that starts talking to you at the bus stop that you don't want to talk to. You know what I'm talking about.
I
He's
do.
popping off as that guy sometimes.
And you're
But
trying to
when
be polite,
oh, you're
but you're
trying
also
so hard.
slightly terrified that they're insane.
You're doing your very best. But when they start screaming about the Shadow Men and the donut that somebody stole from him, that's when you're like, oh boy, come on, bus.
That's when you're waiting for the bus to really show up. Like, now is the moment.
God damn you, public transportation! Come on!
Yeah, and I hear you that you're still on the creepy bus. The thing is
Yeah.
that he feels like he's stitched together from so many different angles that I feel like I've seen most of this somewhere else before. And so Perry hasn't really sold me on Jack Perry yet. It's more like Jack Parody because he is like somebody pretending to be some other bunch of wrestlers all conglomerated. No
But
pun intended on the conglomeration.
for me, he sometimes does sound like that guy that starts talking to you at the bus stop. Yes. But for me, most of the time, I feel like the person across the street at the other bus stop that's watching him talk to someone else. So for me, it's entertaining. So
Oh,
I'm
I
still
see.
there.
You're
I'm
not
still
the
for it.
victim.
Yeah, I'm pulling out my
So for
phone,
you, you're eating your popcorn and watching the train wreck.
Yes,
I see.
I'm pulling out my phone. I'm World Star. Like
You
that's
know,
me. That's what I'm doing. Zooming in.
you know who, like, especially after that little cryptic promo, but not exclusively. Like almost
Mm.
everything he's done since he's been here as the scapegoat has given me like old Karrion Cross vibes, where Karrion would be like,
Oh God,
"The
you're not
stars
wrong.
have predicted in the tarot that you're the third wheel from the left south of Saturn, and I am the arbiter of all that is TikTok." And it's
Oh
like,
my
what?
God! Listen,
What the
he used to.
heck did you just say?
My guy used to say TikTok so hard, like
So hard. Like, we know, okay, we get it. Your favorite social media program is TikTok. We're
it's
there,
just
you know?
with the crazy eyes, TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. And
He'd come out and cut a promo, and it's just TikTok, 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 TikTok,
right, with
TikTok.
Scarlett's just like writhing and lighting an incense, and it's like, what is happening? What is going on here? She's got like a snake in one hand and a dagger in the other. It's like, what
She's like
is going on?
straddling one of his legs,
Yeah. So it's
randomly
like that.
meowing. Like, what the
Yeah,
fuck is
and
she
it's like
meowing
that,
for?
only not even as cool as that is the
Yeah,
feeling I've currently got with regards to the scapegoat. So it's like,
man.
where are we going with this? Because
You should leave Mr. Perry alone.
get the
Get
hell
the
up out of
heck
here,
up out
Jack
of here,
Perry.
Jack Perry. Yep.
I think
I knew it was coming.
I think Mark Briscoe understood before all of us. He
Yeah.
is a secret savant that works on a
Well,
chicken farm during the day and
you kn-
becomes a superhero on Dynamite.
you knew he was a god dang on Jim. You knew it. You knew it. I
I
mean,
did.
not Jack Perry, but Mark Briscoe. Jack Perry's
Mark
alright, but
Briscoe.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mark Briscoe is the
I'm
national
I'm not
treasure.
I'm not trying to trounce Jack Perry. I would actually like I feel like he's had an identity crisis ever since the Jurassic Express kind of fell off the rails. And
Yeah,
so I'm hoping he can find himself so that we can be like on board for whatever it is.
yeah, yeah.
Um
Me too.
but moving on from that, we are
Yeah. Speaking
again
speaking on crazy.
speaking on crazy. That brings us to Renee Paquette. No, not Renee Paquette. She's sweet and cool and wonderful, and nobody ever
Yeah.
say a negative word against her. But she is in the back, and she is, for whatever reason, I don't know. I guess she likes trying to deal with like anger issue having men. I mean, she is married to John Moxley. But she's here trying to get a word in with Hangman Page, the
Yeah.
crazy
Hey,
person who
hey.
tried to absolutely murder Swerve Strickland in the main event of All Out.
Hangman Crazy Eyes Page.
Hangman Crazy Eyes Page, like the most
Yeah.
crazy eyes.
Like just remove his eyes. I mean, don't literally do that, please. But just put like those little googly eyes right there in its place, and there won't be a difference. You won't know. You won't know which are his actual eyes and which are the little googly eyes. I bet. Do it, people at home. Do it. Put googly
Yep.
eyes on Adam Page. Pick a picture. Put googly eyes on it. Do it. I dare you. Send it to me. Okay.
That was the only thing that Swerve and Page didn't hit one another with is googly eyes. They should have found some googly eyes that they could staple onto one another, and so by the end of the match, they look like some eldritch horror with like 1,000 eyes.
Oh my god. Yeah,
Um,
cause yeah, I don't want to sleep ever again. Thanks.
no, not ever, never ever.
Who needs
Behave
it?
because Swerve is watching.
Yeah.
But basically, if anybody was wondering if the feud between Swerve and Page was over after the events of All Out, Page more or less says that if Swerve had bought 1,000 houses, he would have burned all of them to the ground. And that he meant every word, every bruise, every drop of blood. And that if anyone stood between him and Swerve, he would find them too and hurt them. And so
Yeah.
clearly Hangman is still completely insane. In case anyone had any doubt.
Yeah, I mean it's going way past. And I remember back in the innocent days when I was young and foolish, and I saw Swerve break into Adam's home, and I was like, "Oh, you monster! Who does that? How dare you!" Seriously, I was floored. I thought that was over the top. Foolish me, foolish me.
Yeah.
Future me scoffs at past me and my dumb
Yeah.
innocence. Yeah, no,
Well,
we are
this
so past that now.
this feels like this is the point in this feud where they want all sympathy for Hangman to be washed away. Like, because, like you just said, people would be like, yeah, but, Swerve did break into his house. So, like, a lot of this feels very justified. Like, you break into
Yeah,
my house, you're getting some bullets. So now that Hangman's gotten his pound of flesh back, it's like, so is the quest for vengeance over? Was it proportional? You got him back, and he's like, nope. So at this point, Hangman has become the obsessed and unreasonable one. Like many people
yeah,
probably would have thought that we may have jumped that shark, but this is for sure the point. Like, in case anyone had any doubts, that
yeah,
Hangman is now the heel in this rivalry, you
yeah,
know, whereas Swerve may have started that way, but that Hangman has taken the feud, too far. And to
yeah,
emphasize that point, after the interview, Hangman goes and shoves some security guards to the ground, walks past the Dark Order, mean mugging them, and they're like, "We don't even know who you are anymore." And
yeah.
then he walks into
Oh, Papa Jarrett.
old Jeff Jarrett. And Jeff Jarrett, I guess, attempts to talk some sense into Hangman,
Yeah,
saying something like he's seen a lot of guys go down this road, and believe you me, you will eventually pay for putting hands on Karen Jarrett. But
mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, there's no meaner, more brutal, and more unforgiving person than the man that's staring back at you in the mirror. And that just sets Hangman off, who just lights into Jarrett,
Yeah,
punching him a fair few times. And then when Jarrett tries to attempt to fight back, he yeets Jarrett into a pile of chairs.
yeah.
And then security shows up and kind of keeps them apart, and Hangman storms off. So I imagine we've got a Jeff Jarrett versus Hangman Page match coming at some point in the future. Maybe Collision or even Dynamite of next week.
I thought that there would be no way possible that anybody could make Jeff Jarrett a face.
Yeah, how do
I
you make a face out of someone who calls themselves the Last Outlaw?
which by the way, you guys don't know this, but we got beef with Jeff Jarrett about that.
We do have beef. Our custom tag team that we built in 2K24 are called the Outlaws, and they are very much cowboys who seek to tame the ropes and to kick the heck out of all of the other
Heck.
competitors on the roster that are trying to keep these outlaws from their gold.
Yeah.
And so we personally took offense to Jeff Jarrett calling himself the Last Outlaw.
Yeah,
You
rage
might have been the
ensued.
first outlaw, Methuselah, but you ain't the last.
Methuselah. I like how you just start to slowly slip into the southern accent.
How
Good
all of the
stuff.
Texan comes out when we're talking
All,
about the outlaws.
all the
All of
Texan,
it. All the Texan.
and yet my character is Dmitry Gavelkovich.
Yeah,
Who knew?
Russian cowboy.
The Russian
Yep.
cowboy. Yeah. So the face Jeff Jarrett gets pounced on, sucker punched by Hangman, yeeted into some chairs, and Hangman's like, "Who asked you?" And then he storms off. Um, and then next we got what? Private Party and Commander. They
Oh
were coming
yes.
out
Yes.
for a
So the
match.
next thing the next thing we hear is shots, shots, shots. Here we are. Shot, shot, shot. What do we want? Shot, shot, shots. Who cares? And so private party, and I think I said this. I was like, I wish it was a private party, but here they're coming out in public. And
Yeah.
so we have private party and commander, and we're like, when this is happening, because it's like, oh man, like of all the things that I wanted to see on Dynamite, I was like all wrapped up, like about the events of All Out, and then it's like private party, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then we see them get to the ring, and the three guys that are already in the ring look like quote unquote local talent. And I'm like, oh my god, Private Party and Commander are going to get a squash match where they are squashing someone else.
Yeah.
And I then said, oh, where's Moxley to destroy somebody when I need them to? And it's like I had
And
seen
then-
the future. And then, before Private Party's intro is done, John Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Mina Shafir all rushed the ring, obliterating all the local talent. Like, they're gone instantly. And then they proceed to kick the life out of Private Party and Commander.
Poor Commander
with
gets put
Moxley-
into a sleep. Got put to sleep with a choke.
Yes.
A chokehold from Shafir.
Yeah, Moxley, Claudio, and Pac all handles everyone else, but Commander's still in kind of the middle of the ring, and Mina Shafir kind of gets him in. I'm trying to remember. Was it a Dragon Sleeper she had him in? I think it was. And so she's just sitting. No, I don't think he was facing the right way. It was more like
he was
a guillotine.
facing her.
Like a guillotine choke.
Yes,
And so she kneels down and just holds Commander in a guillotine choke for what seems like an eternity. Like I'm watching the events of everything else going on, and it's like,
all right,
I'm sitting there thinking, if this is an actual guillotine choke, then at this point, Commander is losing brain function because she's just kept it on him for so long.
Yeah.
And finally, Pac kind of, I think, taps her on the shoulder or something, and she relents. And Pac grabs a microphone. And every time Pac grabs a microphone, it's awesome because I'm like, all right, time for Angry Leprechaun Englishman.
Oh, man.
Because he does look like an angry leprechaun. And I say that with love. The Bastard Pac is one of my favorites over there. He is. He's one of my absolute favorites.
You know what? You look like a fucking frog with a frog face frog, but I say that with love.
Frog. No offense, but you look like what would happen if a Harry Potter house elf did a whole lot of steroids and had gotten a gift of both socks. And you're all like, the bastard is free! Free at last! I can pursue some gold.
I mean, no disrespect, but you look like a roided Dobby. I love you, though. I love you.
He is. We know what happened to Dobby after the events of Harry Potter and the Bastard Pack.
when he got that sock. And when he got that sock, he immediately hit the gym.
And now he just awaits the day that, like, Draco Malfoy or Lucius Malfoy should step into the ring. And then you'll know why he's a bastard.
Oh, man. From the story of Dobby, the elf that went from house elf to bodybuilder.
From house elf to homicide.
From house elf to gym bro.
to Jim Bro. Exactly. But anyway, I digress so much. Pac gets the mic and he says some stuff like, again, being part of Moxley's cryptic crew. Cripply? What is
Crew.
his cripply crew. Pac says he's a product of the environment and that they are inevitable. And he's been lost for so long, but now he's got a purpose. And which you and I stopped and talked about that. It's like I'm sitting here saying these guys are starting to sound like Thanos from the Avengers, and you're like, nah, they remind me of the Wyatt Six. And I think we both eventually agreed that it's a little bit of both.
Yeah,
But like saying things like
that's not a dig, by the way. No, that's not a dig at all. We are here for this. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Not
it's
a dig.
excellent.
We're not saying AEW's copy or nothing. To be perfectly honest, I don't care. I'm here for it. I am here for whatever's happening.
Because, like, a big part of the promo earlier in the evening that Moxley had stated was, I hated doing every second of what I had to do, Brian. I really wish you would have been able to be at my side, but you don't got the stomach to do what needs doing.
Yeah.
And so between that attitude of like, I have to reluctantly but necessarily do what needs done, even if it means sacrificing my best friend, to statements like this, we are inevitable, and things like diplomacy has failed, this is war, and the company is ours, that really just totally made me think of Thanos from the Avengers.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. And, I mean... I see it. I do. But he came out and the only person who talked at that point was Pac. Then after that, he yeeted the mic and everybody started to leave the ring. Yeah, he said he said diplomacy has failed and this company is ours. This company's ours. And he said,
yeah, no, it was like that. Like, we had to stop. I was like, wait, what did he say at the end? And because he rattled it off real fast. He was like, this company's ours. And it's like, you have overtime hours? What did he say? So...
Like, oh man, y'all better pay him. Y'all better pay them overtime hours.
Right. It's time to pay the Piper, the angry house elf Piper.
No socks, baby, like cash.
I'm starting to feel bad because I feel like I'm accidentally burying Pac, like by calling him Dobby the house elf, the angry house elf. But I really do like him. Like, I was so here for it when he went with Ospreay, and I think he's a fantastic pro wrestler. But this is mocking of love. And I'm sure he would appreciate it right back with a poison Rana or something.
God.
So
yes, he would call a poison Rana a hug.
He'd be like, "I'll show you an angry house elf." And I'm like, "What?" And that would be it. But
a choco.
Yeah. So I have to say, like, between Moxley's promo, the events of All Out, and then what they did to Private Party, like, I wasn't sure if I liked them, but then they beat up Daniel Bryan, and they kicked the crap out of, like, Private Party. So I kind of think I'm here for whatever it is they're doing.
I know Nigel is. I know Nigel hadn't said anything, but I'm sure he's here. Nigel is on board for it.
We will absolutely hear from old Nigel McGuinness later on in the evening. Nigel. But after that, we are then treated to the second match of the night. Or I guess it would have been the third match, but the second one never got off the ground because of Moxley et al. But the second match of the night is Ricochet versus Sammy Guevara, and oh man, I am here for it.
You hear the two names. Yeah. You hear the two names. You're whatever you're thinking right now when you hear Ricochet, right? And then you hear Sammy Guevara, right? That's exactly yes. What you are thinking is exactly what happened. Yes.
That is how it hit me. Like, Ricochet's coming out, and I'm like, oh, sweet, Ricochet, because, like, it's like his second or third match here in AEW. So we were like, yeah, all right, we get to see more of Ricochet. We get to see him, kind of unleashed now that he's over here in AEW. But then I was like, okay, well, who's he going against? And I saw Sammy Guevara, and I'm like, not the high-flying Spanish god.
Yep. The
And
same.
these
The very
two
same.
put on a match like they thought they were competing with Pac and Will Ospreay. Like
Yeah.
they were bringing it. They had all their high flyer juice going, and
High
it
flyer
was
juice.
amazing. Well, I mean, like you've got two of the most high flying and acrobatic individuals in wrestling right now in
It
Sammy
was
Guevara and Ricochet, and it
it was
was
good to see.
exactly as you thought it would be. Like
Yep. Yep.
just all the corkscrew planchas and counter wrestling and 450s that they land on their feet because their opponent rolled away. Just an amazing back and forth between these two, and this was another one of those wonderful matches where it was booked between two competitors so that they're so close that later into the match you're like, the person who hits the next big move is going to win this.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
for a second there, like after Sammy tried to do, I think it was a shooting star press. Well, yes, but that came next. Like he initially
Right.
tried to do a top rope move.
Yes.
Yeah, and
But
Ricochet rolls out into I think a high knee, and then, or no, he missed the shooting star press, but then caught Ricochet running at him with a high knee, and then attempts the GTH, which is short for go to hell, because it's, I don't know, homage mockery of Go to Sleep from CM Punk.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, oh man, Sammy's going to win this.
Yeah.
But then Ricochet, true to his name, sort of blocks it and bounces off of Sammy's knee and hits him with his own knee. And I think it was a really neat kick series. Like it was a knee followed by a super kick followed by like a middle kick that had Sammy doubled over, and then he did like a jumping axe kick to the side back of Sammy's head. And I hadn't seen a kick like that from anybody before. I mean, I know Booker T and some other wrestlers do like that running axe kick off the ropes, but this wasn't like that. This was like just it was a standing jump into an axe kick that looks like it came down directly on top of Sammy's head. It was brutal looking. And I was like, oh, well, that's unfortunate. And that set up Sammy to be put into position for Ricochet's Vertigo, and Vertigo looked good. I do miss, like, I think Ricochet used to spin with it more, like he'd do a couple of 180 or 360 rotations before he dropped Vertigo. But now he's more inclined to just pick him up into Vertigo and maybe turn 45 degrees before dropping him.
Yeah.
But it looked great, and it was what ended the match with Ricochet winning. And that's a pretty big win for Ricochet against Sammy Guevara.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fantastic. And I think that wasn't even the end of it, because then suddenly, what was the Beast Mortos?
Beast Mortos, yeah. Mortos came out and basically gave Ricochet a spear.
Like speared Ricochet in half. Like this was a spear, like capital S.
Yeah, and then Sammy comes in with a chair, and saves Ricochet from any more damage, and then Mortos rolls out of the ring and does his raw. He had to get it in. That, like, I love when he does it though, but he had to get it in. He had to get one.
That is literally the only thing the Beast Mortos ever says. You're roar.
Raw. That's it.
It makes me want them to do a segment where like Renee Paquette is back there, and she's like, I'm here with the Beast Mortos, and like the whole, like she asks him like 5 questions and every answer is roar, roar, roar. It would be such a great interview. Uh, and then she's like, "Well, thank you, Mortos, for the interview time." Roar! And then he goes,
Then he just walks out.
and then like I don't know, maybe Ciabatta walks by having witnessed the whole thing, and so he types into Siri, and he's like, "That was weird. That man really needs to learn to speak for himself." You know, some it would be the best.
I would be here
Uh,
for it. I need somebody with any video editing skills. I need somebody to make a video of what's his name? Oh man. Uh uh the big SOB.
the big
Oh,
SOB. Oh,
from
Braun
WWE.
Strowman.
Yes, I need
Braun
somebody
Strowman.
with Braun Strowman's music, Let the music
Mm-hmm.
start and then the part where it does the roar, somebody needs to spice in Mortos.
With the beast mortal. Roar!
Yes. Dum 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 dum. Roar! Yes, somebody needs to do that.
The monster among mortals. Um, but
I'd be
yeah,
here for it.
that was great. And the Beast Mortos is a whole separate conversation. Like that guy showed up, I'm guessing, out of CMLL, and
Mhm.
I adore the Beast Mortos. Like
No,
everything
yeah,
about
he's
him.
awesome.
He's fantastic in the ring. His character of the Minotaur and like always being in the mask and just going roar to everything is so good.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm completely over the moon with the Beast Mortos. And
Yeah.
so I'm guessing I think you mentioned that Sammy saved Ricochet with the chair before, giving him a hand up.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing this sets up a future match between Ricochet and the Beast Mortos, and I'm here for it.
I'm
Um,
here
I
for
don't
it.
I don't think it will be as like matched of a style as Ricochet and Sammy Guevara because
Yeah.
Mortos is kind of a powerhouse wrestler,
Mhm.
but he does do some high flying, like that corkscrew through the middle rope that is like super high speed.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I'm here for it. That's going to be one heck of a match.
Yep. Excuse me.
And so after that, we go back to Rennie Packets. Rennie Packets featured a lot in
Yeah.
this episode.
Yeah, she was getting a
Um,
check. She got a check last night.
she was, and I mean, I don't hate Rennie
No.
Packets is great.
Yeah.
But this time she's back there talking to Kazuchika Okada about his match and kind of what's next for Okada. Because he had won the Fatal Four Way to retain his title at All Out, and Okada starts playing it up. He's all like, "It was the hardest night of my life, but I did it. It was so easy." And so he feigns being like, "Oh, it was so tough," and he's like, "Nah,
Mhm,
it
mhm.
wasn't." And he
Easy,
gives some fake
easy
tears,
dub.
and out of nowhere, Don Callis, the Thumb, shows up with Konosuke Takeshita, and more or less Okada tells Takeshita that someday he'll be champion, just not the Continental champion. And
Yeah.
then then Okada walks away, and then he comes back into frame just to say, "Bitch." And it was amazing. I am so thrilled with the level of personality that they allow Okada to show. And that he's really sort of gotten into this vibe with his personality where he is just a troll all the
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
Like he like everything he says is a double entendre, and he's great at playing possum in the ring. And he reaches down for his shoes like he's about to pop for the crowd and do like a big gesture, and it's always he comes up with the middle finger, and he's smiling and trolling, like, so he's such a troll, like he is
Yeah.
a troll. And it's fantastic because I do think, and this is an area where I think I'm seeing AEW and I don't know who to give credit for this. I'm just saying I've seen it at AEW. I don't know if it's the performers finally getting let off the leash, or if it's creative direction presented to them by AEW. But Japanese wrestlers often seem like very awkward or stiff when they're trying to appeal to a Western audience. And not for nothing because of the huge language and cultural barrier. But between Shibata talking, by way of Siri through his phone, to Okada having latched on to being like this huge troll, and basically saying to everyone on the end of every line, "Bitch," the wrestlers from Japan are, I think, showcasing very well by coming out with some real personality and not being so stiff.
I agree.
Yeah. And from there, we cut to in the back hallways of AEW. You see Darby Allin working his way from backstage, and then kind of heading towards the ring. And I remember, like, all he did was just cut his intro and walk in like he normally does, and for some reason Shivani added like a whole bunch of subtext to it that it wasn't there. Like, he's like, look at how he's walking to the ring,
taking his time as if to say, "Screw you, Moxley, I'll get there when I'm fucking ready."
And I don't fear you. I hear someone's been looking for me, and I'm right here. And while that is what Darby says when he gets to the ring, like, Darby was just doing his normal intros. So, like, all of that.
Yeah. Well, he didn't have his skateboard, right?
Yeah.
He didn't,
Yeah,
and Shivani pointed that out. Yes.
So.
No, go ahead.
Well, like again, there's reading between the lines, and then there's like filling them in with your own novella, and that is more of what Shivani did than interpret like what Darby was doing. Like, he just added a whole bunch of stuff in there, and I just thought it was funny. It's like he took a step towards defiance of Jon Moxley. And then he looked defiantly across the crowd, as if to see if Jon Moxley was making his way through it because he didn't care. And I'm like, wow, this is so over the top, Shivani.
Taking his time as if to say, "Screw everyone, I'll get there when I'm ready."
Carrying a skateboard because he could roll down the entrance ramp doesn't mean he's gonna.
I mean, so he painted a in-depth picture of tension and poise and defiance, and my man was just coming to the ring. He was just coming to the ring. He was like, "Yeah, I'm here." He didn't bring his skateboard and all that because he wasn't like about to have a match or nothing. He wasn't trying to do his full on opener. He was just coming to the ring. That was it. There was nothing else to it. But I mean, if Shivani wasn't making colorful commentary, then what's his job, right? So I guess he was just doing his job, except at that time it was pretty funny. It was noticeable, that's all.
That time it was in Technicolor commentary. Like he was just adding a whole bunch of extra stuff to what was otherwise Darby just making his way to the ring. But once Darby gets there and says he's heard someone's been looking for him and he's right here, it's not long before Jon Moxley's music hits, and he and Marina Shafir work their way back through the crowd and join him in the ring. And Moxley makes a show of like, "Hey, I'm just here to talk. I don't have any weapons." And I'm like, and the commentators said this too. It's like, but you have Marina Shafir, who you've used almost exclusively as a weapon since she's been shown up with you. And I think Moxley starts talking to him because I think Darby is like, "I heard you were looking for me. What do you want, Moxley?" And Moxley says he doesn't know what Darby had heard, but nothing's changed between the two of them. And Darby's like, I've heard enough. And I'm sitting there thinking, have you? Because like he only just started talking.
Yeah,
Um,
I was like, but didn't you want to know what he was? Oh, okay, all right. So then Darby
apparently
starts
not.
talking. Yeah, and Darby starts talking about how long he's known Moxley and whatnot, and he basically said that he used to want to be like Moxley. He admired him and all this, and then he saw him attack Brian, and he knew that he didn't want to be anything like Moxley at that moment. And so then why was Moxley calling him out here, and again wanted to know what he wanted, what did he want from him? And I'm thinking, well, had you just waited, because you had told him to speak, then he would have just told you that.
Right.
But okay, all right, sure. And then Moxley says, "Take it away."
Oh, after Darby asked, "What do you want, John?"
I think,
he says something akin to, and this confused me initially because like he said Darby no longer has a world title shot at Grand Slam. So I'm like, okay, so he lost his world title shot. And then he says that's good because Darby wasn't ready. And Moxley wants Darby to hand that title shot over to him. And so I was like, well, wait a minute. Does he not have a title shot, or does he have a title shot that he hasn't cashed in yet? And I'm guessing it's the latter because that became the basis for the whole rest of the exchange.
yeah,
So because Darby isn't there yet, and Moxley needs to be, the world champion in order to do whatever it is he thinks needs done in AEW to get it back on the right path, he basically wants Darby to just hand him the title shot. And Darby was like, are you out of your mind? Have you started drinking again? Because there's no way he's just going to hand that to Moxley.
yeah,
And so Moxley says something like, "Oh, okay, so you want me to earn it?" And he says, "Fine, you and me in New York at Grand Slam for the championship shot." And so this is a match not for a championship, but for a shot at the championship. And so
yeah.
Moxley goes on to say that Darby doesn't really know what's going on here, and that's believable because I'm not sure most of us really know what's going on here with regards to
Yeah.
whatever it is Moxley's trying to do.
Yeah.
But he says he'll teach Darby the lesson the hard way, and it's Darby Allin. He only likes lessons taught to him the hard way, so he of course accepts.
Yeah.
And says if you're trying to burn AEW to the ground, don't be surprised when Darby pulls him into the fire with him. Mic drop. And so that was pretty much that promotion or promo. And I'm hoping that this is one of those things where it'll become more clear as we watch, because I'm not entirely sure. Like, obviously, Moxley wants to be the champion. That's a pretty straightforward motivation for just about anyone in AEW, right? Like, I want the championship.
Yeah.
But, like, the reasons he's wanting it and why he doesn't think Daniel Bryan should be the champion and all of this other stuff about, like, you're either with us or you're against us. And it's like, well, how could I determine that when I'm not sure what you're about yet?
And also, he's got enough time to come out here. He spent all this time looking for me. He's got time to come out here and say, I don't have time to explain it all to you. Then, bro, come on. I mean, what do you want from me? You're spending all this time basically threatening me for an opportunity. You could just, meet me in the back and tell me what's going down.
Yeah, or explained it to everybody, literally everybody else, with all of the vignettes. Like, in the time it takes Moxley to work his way through the crowd to the ring, if he'd just come down the entrance ramp, he would have had a lot of time to explain to everybody, like, what he's trying to do. So, it's weird.
He took the long way. That's on him. I understand why we are now suffering.
Not for nothing, it would be a shorter trip if Marina Shafir didn't stop and like body slam literally every member of security on the way.
Yeah.
So I
Maybe
mean,
not put anybody in any sleep holds for like a year.
right? Like the amount of time that Mina Shafir had Commander in a guillotine choke, you could have explained all of it. You know,
Yeah,
like I think you've had the time.
yeah. Dragon League will be cutting a promo from the hospital. Thanks,
Dragon
thanks.
Lee? You mean
I
Daniel
said
Bryan or
Dragon League. Oh
Commander?
my god, I meant Commander,
Oh, okay. Yeah,
not the
Commander could tell
Dragon
us all
League.
about it. Like if Mina Shafir had taken the time while she had him in that guillotine choke to just explain the whole thing, then Commander could tell us.
Yeah, when he woke
Um,
up from his coma, he could tell us all about it if he still remembered.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know if it's a time issue so much as a Moxley's just trying to be a cryptic troll issue.
Yeah.
But I mean, regardless of that, I'm very curious as to what Moxley and this sort of reformed Blackpool Combat Club question mark is about. So I'll play along for a while.
Yeah.
I'll buy in. But after that, we cut to Chris Daniels with Alex Marvez, and Nigel McGuinness comes up almost immediately and says he wants a word with Tony Khan now, which I guess he has to get by way of Christopher Daniels because he's the proxy for Tony Khan.
Yeah.
And so he's very insistent on it, and then they sort of leave it at that, like, oh, what's that about? And that brings us to match number 3 of the night, which is an AEW Women's World Championship eliminator match between the current champion Mariah May and the hopefully contender Queen Aminata.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm always glad to see, like, I know Mariah May can go in the ring, and I absolutely know that Queen Aminata can go in the ring. And so I'm always kind of happy to see that she gets time on AEW television, but
Yeah.
I'm also kind of not happy because it means she's going to be doing the job while she's on it. And I think Queen Aminata is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I get it, Mariah May is the champion, but this is also just a championship eliminator. This is for a shot at a shot. And I've got a whole outlook on eliminator matches. I think they're crazy. Like, how are you going to tell me I got to beat the champion before I get a chance to beat the champion? If I beat the champion,
Yeah.
doesn't that just make me the champion? Like, clearly, you lost, I won. That makes me the champion.
Yeah.
So, the very concept of this eliminator match is very weird to me because I kind of feel like if at any point you can beat the champion, you are now the champion.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
So they both come out, and I'm at this point I'm resigned to Aminata's more than likely not going to win, even though it's an eliminator
Right.
match.
Yeah.
Even though the belt's not actually on the line, I feel like Mariah May has only more or less just won this belt off of the end of a massive storyline with Tony Storm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like the next little while, I don't think that belt's going anywhere.
Yeah. I agree.
And so
And
I'm
I was the one
go ahead.
holding out faith that maybe, um, since it wasn't for the actual since it wasn't the actual championship match, I was holding out hope that maybe they'd give her a W. Just I mean, just to say that she could now have a match for the belt. But wah wah wah.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice to be like maybe the Queen has a shot, but I don't think they were interested in. Obviously, not interested. They wanted to give her a little bit of a shine, but they're not interested in an actual feud.
Yeah.
So the match is a good enough match. There were a couple of real big spots. There was a part where like Aminata hits a snap suplex on Mariah May, and her snap suplex is very good. But what
Yeah.
really was amazing was the release German suplex that she did afterwards. And I mean, if you've watched, you see a lot of people in AEW, and even a lot of the women throw a German suplex. But this was like a German suplex yeet. Like this was a Brock Lesnar suplex. Like
Yeah.
she grabbed a hold of Mariah May and threw her halfway across the ring with this suplex. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And then she, I think, hit a sliding leg lariat after
Mm.
that. And so it for a second there, it's like, wow, you know, Aminata has kind of a shot here. She's bringing it. And I think Mariah May finally got control back when Aminata was going for, I think, a power bomb, and she escaped from it. And May hits her with like a neck breaker to the knee,
Mm-hmm.
like neck breaker on her knee, and
Yeah.
then she puts Aminata up on the middle rope for a draping DDT, similar, not identical, but close to like Randy Orton's draping DDT,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point, I'm like, oh, this is where Aminata's losing. But Aminata got one more pushback with like a double chop and a power slam, and then uncharacteristically, Aminata heads up to the top rope and misses like a diving double stomp. And I'm like, why
Yeah.
is it always like someone who seems like they're more of a power wrestler? Like it's their worst enemy is the turnbuckle, either because they decide they're going to go to the top rope when they really don't need to because they're a power wrestler, or the incredibly overused, like, this person is much bigger than this other person, so they're going to run at them at some point in the corner and shoulder block the turnbuckle post. So the turnbuckle post becomes the great equalizer against a physical mismatch, like, every time.
Yeah.
So, suffice it to say, after she misses the double stomp, she gets like a really nice shotgun drop kick from May, and then she hits her with a running knee, and then picks Aminata up for Storm Zero, and that's the match.
Yeah.
That's the win.
It was a good match. And Queen Amanada looked awesome. She looked real good, real strong, dominant. She was quick. She looked really good. I thought she had a good showing. I just wish that she had won, and I get why she didn't. There's no way they're gonna. They're just not gonna hand out any L's right now to Mariah, and I totally get it.
Yeah. Yep. And
And
then
you, sorry,
go
go ahead. No,
ahead.
no, go. No, I was just gonna say you mentioned earlier, when you and I were having a conversation about this, because we love to talk about this stuff. Just in case you guys didn't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you actually talked to me. You talked to me about her having the match, but losing in a different way that kind of put a better spin or a better perspective on it. So I'm happy that she's getting some time in the ring and on camera. So I'm up on that, and I'm a huge Amanada fan. Just in case you guys didn't know, I am
Yeah.
super up on her. So
I don't. It could be that you and I are big fans of Aminata. She's a great athlete. She looks strong. She might not be as fully physically jacked as say Jade Cargill, but that
hmm
notwithstanding, they're built very similar. Where they're very
yeah,
like lanky and leggy, and like they have huge like quads and glutes and hamstrings, and they look like they could kick the life out of somebody.
yeah,
Um, and Mariah May is great. No issues there. I've been over on Mariah May like throughout the entire Tony Storm thing. She's also a very good, one of the stronger in ring competitors. Like she really brings it. I
yeah,
think though that we're just impatient. Like we see how good Queen Aminata is, and so we're ready for you to just say Queen Aminata is all elite and
Yeah.
stop having her job when she's on AEW. Meanwhile, she's at the top of the card at Ring of Honor. It's like, bring her. It's
Yeah.
not like there's such a glut of really good, and we went into this in depth in our all out coverage. It's not like the roster is suffering from too many amazing women on the AEW side. So bring her. She's good.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so I don't know if it's really AEW mishandling her or if we're just impatient for her to be showcased as good as we see her to be.
Probably
I mean,
just
obviously they
impatient.
see something. They obviously
Yeah.
do. They keep putting her into these matches, and I mean, anytime you get to get into the ring with the current champion, I mean, that says a whole lot. Like, one, Mariah May is their champion. So they're not going to stick her in there with somebody who has a chance of hurting her or they think would look bad. So it's good. It's really good that Queen Aminata got in there with Mariah May, even if she didn't win, because it puts a lot of
Hmm.
shine on Queen Aminata.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think after that match, Mariah May was kind of doing the whole like I'm writhing in the middle of the ring thing that she got from Tony Storm.
Hmm.
And she grabs the mic and laments that she hasn't had her championship celebration. And I think both of our responses were like, yeah, but that's because you keep postponing it because of the trash town that you're in. So, like,
Yep.
nobody has done that to you. You've done that to yourself. And she goes, something is missing. Someone is missing. And she cries out for Mina Shirakawa. So I'm guessing they're hoping that those two get back together somehow. I don't know if she wants to have a match with her or, because, like, it could be a double edged sword because it seems like the people that are most endangered by Mariah May are the ones that she, cares about, or, at least that was the case with Tony Storm. So maybe
Yeah.
that's either an invitation for Mina for something good or an invitation to get annihilated by Mariah May.
Yep. I think after that, um, you know, the learning tree. Did they have a match on Dynamite?
There was a match between
Sorta.
the whole group of the Learning Tree, but before we get there, there was something.
Oh.
There was a small vignette that happened between that and what happened with Mariah May involving the Young
Mm.
Bucks, because the
Right. Right.
Bucks
Right. Right.
kind of came out, or they didn't come out. Actually, it was filmed backstage, and it was a quick promo saying, the fans shouldn't be mad at them for retaining their titles at All Out. They should be
Hmm.
mad at all the other tag teams who aren't good enough to replace them at the top of the division. They are literally begging somebody to be good enough to take those titles off of them. And that's why they've booked the Casino Gauntlet match. And then that was just one of those kind of short promos where the Bucks as the EVPs are saying their piece and then they're like, stop the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that brings us to, I guess you would call the faction the Learning Tree. But
Yeah.
that feels weird because, like, Jericho is the Learning Tree. So it's like,
Yeah.
so when you say, did the Learning Tree have a
The
match? It's like,
the
well,
learning
yeah, but
tree
so
and
did,
students.
yeah, Learning Tree et al. So it was Chris Jericho, Big Bill, I'm sorry, Redwood, and Brian Keith, aka the Bad Apple.
Hmm.
And it was the three of them versus
The Iron
the
Savages.
Iron Savages, which is like the other three guys that if Moxley and his new Blackpool Combat Club wanted to demolish, like, by all means.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
secretly
super.
crossed our fingers and waited for Moxley, but nay, he did not return.
Nay, he did not return. So the
But
Iron
this was a
Savages.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that this was kind of a short, almost squash match. It was really more for what Jericho wanted to say to Orange Cassidy. Which, by the way, I don't think we talked about that in the beginning. Jericho rolled up in his very expensive car.
Yeah, his
What was it? A
Bentley,
Bentley? Yeah, it's a Bentley. Yeah, his
his
car.
Bentley convertible.
Yeah, and he had stolen Orange Cassidy's backpack, his precious backpack. He had found something very interesting in it, and he wanted to show everybody. So that's literally what this match was about. Was basically to bring
Yeah,
them out, give them a little action, a little heat. I mean, Bill gave a big boot to who was it? Boulder.
I
He
think
gave
so. Yeah, Boulder is the big one.
yeah.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just agreeing with you. Like I feel like this match was entirely a pretext to
Yes.
Jericho being able to talk about these things because
Yeah.
it was a big squash match. Like I think Jericho started out in there with Boulder and slaps Boulder in the face, but then like Boulder like inhales and knocks Jericho to the ground, and so
Yeah.
Jericho immediately tags in Big Bill.
Who's still wearing
And
that orange juice stained jacket? Jericho is,
Jericho was,
by
yeah,
the way.
yeah.
Yeah. BT Dubs. He's still wearing that. Just so you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and the announcers are constantly talking about how if that thing's still drenched in orange juice from like 4 years ago, that thing's got to stink.
Yeah, I bet
Like
it's.
they were obsessed with that. But long story short, Bill pretty much like big boots and obliterates Boulder,
Yeah.
and then Bill tags in, or no, Keith tags himself in off of Bill. And one of the Iron Savages, I think, named Jameson, ends up like on the top rope. I think he put himself on the top rope, like he wanted to do a jump attack.
Yeah.
And Brian Keith hit him with that jumping headbutt that he likes to do when people are on the avalanche position up there. And that looked great. And that sets up
Yeah.
Jameson for Brian Keith to hit his finisher, the Diamond Dust. And then after he hits Diamond Dust, he tags in Chris Jericho so that Jericho can get the cocky pin. And of course they do. So yeah, the Iron Savages did not get to take anyone to Titty City. They just went to Squashville.
Yeah.
And you're
Then
right.
after that,
it completely became about Jericho grabbing up the mic and talking about the $7,000 he wants back from Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
And
Which
what he
immediately, the way he was screaming about it, it reminded me. Oh my God, what movie was that? It's a movie from the, I think, 90s, where that kid keeps yelling about $2.
I want my $2.
I want my $2. That kid.
Yes.
That's all I heard when Jericho was up there talking about his 7,000. But hey, he wanted his money.
And you're right. Earlier in the evening, they did show Jericho and the other members of the Learning Tree arriving in his Chekhov's Bentley. Which the whole reason to show him coming in with that Bentley is that at some point later in the evening something bad will happen to that car. Now, my prediction at the time was that maybe like a returning Samoa Joe was going to show up with like a forklift and demolish it. And it turns out I wasn't terrifically far off. It wasn't Samoa Joe though.
Yeah.
So essentially, Jericho is whining about wanting that 7,000 back, and it cuts to Orange Cassidy in the back in the parking garage. And actually, I think I skipped a step. Jericho also, when he was in the ring complaining about the 7,000, he's talking about how he's keeping, Orange Cassidy's backpack, and he found something very interesting in there, and that was a framed picture of Orange Cassidy and the former best friends.
Yeah.
And Jericho cuts into a tirade about, see, that's your problem. You still are all about friendship. You got to realize by now there's no friends in wrestling. Someone's either using you or they're helping you, but it's never about friendship.
Which seemed to affect Big Bill.
Yeah.
Who gave him a look like, Nani? So, future.
Yeah, so maybe that's a little nod to the future of the breaking up of the learning tree.
Yeah.
Maybe the roots don't run so deep on that tree.
Yeah.
Maybe Big
I'd be
Bill is
sad about
fixing
it.
to leaf.
Oh God, please, please.
Sorry, no, I shouldn't branch out into comedy.
Oh God, these
Okay,
jokes. You're barking up the
sorry.
wrong tree.
I'm barking up the wrong tree. Well done. Well done. All right, I'm sorry. Anyway, I digress. You were saying?
uh, yeah. So I know that was it. Just future. I'll be sad about it because I kind of like this whole learning tree spiel, but I like whatever Jericho does when he does his little characters. It's always interesting. I may
Yeah.
critique or I might be a little harsh or a little down on him sometimes about his ring work. Some as of late, man, sometimes, but his characters are always a friggin' delight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
The fact that he can take almost anything and turn it into a passable, if not successful, gimmick is like Jericho's wheelhouse. Like that's his magic power because he's a wizard.
yeah. But but he's on the mic and he wants his money. And then Orange Cassidy pops up on the Tron. And he says that he has Jericho's money, and he like instructs basically Kyle and Mark Briscoe to just dump a whole bunch of change
Yes.
in
Yeah.
Jericho's Bentley.
It was an entire like not forklift, but like one of those giant like industrial construction scoops filled with change.
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah,
say it was pennies. It might have been like quarters or something, but like basically they poured what looked, or I think they hoped looked like a half ton of loose change into the
yeah.
Bentley.
It was a
And
lot of change.
it was a lot. And then to add insult to injury, Orange Cassidy pulls out a bill and he puts it on like just a little part of the upholstery on the driver's seat sticking up in
Yeah,
kind of like the back. And he puts the little bill down and then grabs 4 quarters because he wanted exact change.
yeah.
And Jericho is having a fit in the ring about his Bentley being destroyed, and it's like,
My Bentley.
I mean, it seems like you're just losing a lot of money messing with Orange Cassidy, Jericho.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and that was the whole skit there between Orange and Jericho, but it was fun. It
Yeah.
was fun. Um, and that leads us into the next segment where when AEW comes back from the break, you've got Nigel McGuinness in the ring. And he apologizes for the interruption, but there's something he's got to get off his chest. And he goes on to say that there's not going to be an AEW World Championship match at Grand Slam, which is good for the champion, but not that good for AEW. So Nigel says he's got an event. He says that an event like Grand Slam should have the champion at least compete on the show, which brings him to this. He says Danielson is afraid of Nigel, which is just in keeping with the just rampant haterade that Nigel McGuinness has used his
Yes.
platform as a commentator to level at Danielson,
Yeah.
talking about just how much Danielson's career is a fluke and it should have kind of been his. And he goes on to say that the one match that everyone wants to see, which isn't terribly wrong. I mean, if anybody's been watching AEW or listening, it's like so much of Nigel has been about, I hope he's got one more match in there, because I want to fight him. And I was like,
Yes.
sure, like everybody, I'm sure, was like, whatever, you're retired and you're on commentary, just shut your pie hole. Well, this is Nigel putting his money where his mouth is. And he then reveals that he talked to Tony Khan and he has a contract to go against Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam. And
Yeah.
this gets a sizable crowd pop. Like, I
Yeah.
think people are really like kind of like Nigel is the character he portrays at commentary is terrible. Like it's like shut up, Nigel. But
You're not
him
wrong.
actually getting into the ring at All In for the Gauntlet match, like he was good, and it was cool to see. Right, like
Yeah.
it would be like if anybody who was kind of retired forgot, like maybe Corey Graves, if he was like, I'm going to have one more match, or even say like Wade Barrett, or when Taz stepped in to put the Taz mission on it wasn't Jericho, on Brian Keith when
Mm-hmm.
Jericho and Hook were fighting for the FTW belt.
Yeah.
So when these commentators that were former wrestlers step in to go one more again, it always gets like kind of a huge pop, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it was huge that Nigel McGuinness not only like it wasn't like he stepped in for like doing his one move and then that was it and he's back on commentary. He got full bore into the gauntlet match and he stayed in the gauntlet match until it was over.
Yep.
And now apparently is going to have a full blown match with Bryan Danielson. So that was actually pretty cool,
Yeah. I'm
all
here
things
for it.
considered. Yeah, it was way cooler than anything I thought Nigel McGuinness would ever do.
You ain't wrong. Yeah.
So I am here for it as well. I'm like, after all the hatred that Nigel has leveled towards Bryan Danielson, this better be an amazing match.
It better be. Yeah.
And
Being a.
that then sets the stage for, I believe, the main event of Dynamite, which
Uh
is
huh.
the Tag Team Casino Gauntlet. And to kick that match off, the Young Bucks make their way out because they're going to be observing the match from the stage in their own chairs. Not ringside, but kind of on the entrance stage
Yeah.
before you hit the ramp. They park their own little chairs there and they're going to watch up close.
Yeah. Kind of
And
basically from the area where they normally come out, the little middle area. That's where they set up
mhm,
shop.
yep. And man, this gauntlet match was something else.
Yeah.
This match was amazing. I mean, I've always felt like AEW does some of their best work with their multi-man matches, and
Hmm.
this was the multi-man match to end all multi-man matches.
Yeah. This one
I
was
mean,
great. There were
anybody,
so many people. There were so many tag
so
teams
many.
that eventually ended up in the ring. I'm getting ahead of myself here. But you were saying anybody?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, anyone familiar with how a casino gauntlet goes, you've seen it done in singles matches.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, the reason it's called a casino gauntlet is that it's a gauntlet match, which means that a new competitor is going to come to the ring endlessly until the match is concluded. And with a casino gauntlet, the interval of time between one team or versus the last team that entered and the next team that enters is a random number. So sometimes it could be like 5 minutes before somebody comes to the ring. In other cases, it could be like a minute or even 45 seconds. So
Yeah.
in a relatively short period of time, you can end up with quite a few competitors in there, and it ends up looking more like a rumble match instead of a gauntlet.
Yep.
And that was more or less the case in this casino gauntlet tag match because, with tag teams, you got two people coming in instead of one. So in short order, you could have anywhere from 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 men in the ring. And that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
The first two teams that came to the ring were FTR and Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
And that blew me away because in a gauntlet match, depending on if the match ends early, it could be really good to come out first because if you can get the match over with before too many other people come out, great for you. But on the other end of that, if the match doesn't end early, then you're going to be in one really long, really got your butt kicked by a lot of different people kind of match.
Yeah.
And so I was I was pretty surprised to see two of the absolute favorites for this, which would be Fletcher and Osprey and FTR, being the first two teams. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh, well, they're not starting this slow.
yeah, and they go at it for a little bit. Excuse me. Uh, I think one of the first moves was a slingshot Liger bomb by Dax. Uh,
Mm-hmm. A brutal
then
one, by the way,
yeah,
because when Dax delivered it, Osprey. I remember they showed us to it in the repeat because they mentioned Osprey took it real high on the neck, and Osprey's out there with a kinesio tape on his neck from
yeah,
the fights he's had earlier. And he ended up leaning back into the Liger Bomb almost like he was trying to counter it into a Rana, but didn't. And so he just took it hard on the high part of his shoulder. So yeah,
yeah,
that was a brutal slingshot Liger Bomb by Dax.
yeah. Then Fletcher chimes in. I think he did a Michinoku driver. He goes after Osprey comes in, and he does a move and on Dax, but basically they're going back and forth.
Yeah.
Osprey is about to go up top. Two count like so they're going at it already, and then I think the next team comes in, the third team, which was the Righteous.
The Righteous? Yeah, yep.
Yeah, and they didn't do no fancy snapping or nothing. They just went right to the ring. I'm surprised Shivani didn't write a sonnet about them walking stoically up to the up to the ring as if to say, "We are here to destroy you all. We have no time for taps and snaps." Like some.
Yeah. Yeah, after all of the soliloquy he wrote for Darby Allin coming to the ring, you're right,
Yeah.
But yeah, uncharacteristically, the Righteous. I do think one of the commentators said, "Yeah, the Righteous didn't even mess around. They realized the urgency of the situation."
Yeah.
But yeah, the Righteous kind of burns in there, and let's just take a second to talk about the Righteous. I don't want to dislike anyone just for the sake of disliking them. But I feel like 50% of the Righteous is useless, and the other 50% is being held back. And I really do think that Dutch is like the absolute entirety of the Righteous. He is a great big man. He's like the Big Boss Man reincarnated, but I think he's even bigger than the Big Boss Man. And his power moves and his Boss Man slam
There it is.
ridiculous.
There it is.
Meanwhile,
I was just about to say, yeah.
you've got little Vincent, who has yet to really do a whole lot to impress me in that ring.
I don't know. I feel the same way to an extent, but I guess to play devil's advocate, I would say I do see a good wrestler in Vince. I do. He's good, but I do feel like Dutch could be a really good, strong singles contender.
Yeah.
And I don't know
and
if I could say the same thing about Vincent, and I think that's the difference. I think Vincent might need Dutch more than Dutch needs Vincent. But at what point does that assistance become like a chain?
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Maybe Vincent is an okay wrestler, but Dutch is a very, very good wrestler. So, when the two are out there, I find myself just waiting for Dutch's spots, and then Vincent gets in the ring, and I'm like, oh, come on, tag Dutch back in, please. So, maybe it's that. Maybe it's like a candle in the sun, and Dutch just dwarfs Vincent both physically and performance-wise.
I kind of feel like they know where their bread and butter is too, because they didn't waste much time before Dutch was issuing that Boss Man slam out. They waited no time at all. Like I think they were in the ring for like 5 seconds. And he's like, "Oh, slam!" Yeah, I mean he was ready with it. Excuse me, but they weren't in there for long before the Kingdom came in. So we're already we're already at 8 men, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and things are getting crazy. Um,
Yeah, and the Undisputed Kingdom got like no pop. Like nobody is here for the kingdom.
well,
I mean, they're just
yeah,
not.
yeah.
No matter how often, you know, they come out and they try to get over, it's just not happening. I know they're a heel faction, but like the complete lack of pop for the kingdom is offset by what happens later, and it'll make more sense when we get to the Outrunners.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So they come out and I can't really. Boy, I'm not trying to talk down about the kingdom, but I can't really remember anything that stood out right away when they came into the ring. Now AEW does do a great job of showcasing uh every single tag team that comes in. Like you'll if you get your moment to do something amazing, don't
Mm-hmm.
squander it, you know? So
Yep.
everybody gets that opportunity. And I think maybe by the time that the kingdom showed up, I was so overwhelmed already, like sensory overload, man. There was so much happening. My eyes were probably 3 times the size of my eye sockets. Like I was taking everything in.
Yeah.
So like they come
And I
in
mean,
and move after move is just popping off everywhere. Death Valley Driver over
right.
here. So
Yep.
Boston Bayonet over there. Like, so a lot was happening. Power Slam. Merry
Yep.
Christmas.
Yeah, and at this point, you've got 4 other teams in the ring already, and
Yeah.
so it's just like they take. This is part of why I like the multi-man matches, but it makes it hard to follow every little piece of the action that's going on because you just get this daisy chain of like a long run of each competitor, and in this case, each tag team, sort of coming in and hitting a routine of high spots. And so it's just like one
Yeah.
high spot after the other. And by the time you've processed the like really cool move you just saw, 2 other really cool moves have already happened. And it's just like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
And
What's
I
going
know.
on? That was outstanding. Like all of it. I need to replay it, something.
And I know. I know what you're thinking. Fletcher, Osprey, FTR, um, the Righteous, um, the God
The
dang it,
kingdom.
the Kingdom. Yeah, couldn't possibly be any more. Nope, psych. The Acclaimed. The Acclaimed show up next,
Yep. Yeah,
and
just about the time we process that the kingdom is in the match, we hear that the
now
acclaimed is coming out.
I did mention we have both mentioned that FTR is in this match, so you guys know where the Acclaimed is going. Like
Like
almost
directly, like
immediately,
beeline for
we hear
FTR.
we hear beat the Acclaim, and before that they've already pounced on FTR.
Yeah, they're already hitting Dax and Cash in the face.
Yeah, so no surprise. They come out and they immediately go Super Kick City, um, Power Slam
Yep.
City,
You've got
kicking.
Bowens, who's very good with his little routine of like back chop, forward punch, back chop, forward punch, back chop,
Mhm,
forward punch,
mhm,
who gets right in between. I think it was the Kingdom, right? And so he's punching both members of the Kingdom in the face at the
mhm.
same time, like one in front and one in back. And so yeah, you see just like bodies everywhere. And there
Everywhere.
was there was a really nice spot by Max Caster, Platinum Max Caster. Sorry, it took me a second to remember some of the names. There's a lot of people in this match.
Yeah,
But Dutch, who is gargantuan, and he does not look like his weight is evenly distributed. Like he looks like he's very top heavy,
yeah,
but like Max Caster just powers him up into the attitude adjustment, and I was like, wow,
yeah, yeah,
like Max Caster's not a little guy, but Dutch is a huge guy,
yeah.
and he didn't have what seemed like hardly any problems at all just bodying Dutch up into the attitude adjustment and hitting it on him. And I was like, wow, Caster? Dang.
Yeah. Impressive. Yeah, I remember you commenting on it when we saw it.
Yep.
Um,
And then there was like also a double combination of like a more traditional famouser that Max Caster did, the one
mhm,
that's like bog standard daddy ass version. And then
mhm.
you had Bowens, Anthony Bowens did the one where he comes over the back of a guy and does it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I'm trying to remember if they did that to, was it Vincent or was it somebody from the, it might have been, was it Bennett from the Kingdom? I think it was. Um
Uh, it was a famouser to Bennett.
Bennett. Okay.
Yeah,
So
and then Dax. One for Dax.
okay. But then, like, while we're processing all of this butt kickery that is happening, the next thing we know, the MXM collection are coming out. And they, of course, immediately attacked the Undisputed Kingdom. And can I
Yeah.
just say, if I really kind of want to give props to the MXM collection because
Mhm.
these guys are basically doing like not a dissimilar shtick. If anything, they're leaning into it more heavily, but it's the same shtick as when they were Maximum Male models over in the WWE, except that it's super over and they're able
Yeah.
to showcase their ability to wrestle. So instead of being relegated kind of the way Pretty Deadly has to being sort of like comic relief, these
Mhm.
guys are like a very credible in-ring threat, no matter how kind of over the top and ridiculous they are as their
Yeah.
characters in MXM.
And I
And it is
actually thought that's what they were
everything.
gonna do. Yeah, I thought that's what they were gonna do with Pretty Deadly over in
Yeah.
WWE, and they started out that way, and then just kind of fizzled out. So yeah, but MXM is giving me life.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And, you know, not to skip too far ahead, but predictably, you almost have like this Mexican standoff between the Acclaimed, who are brandishing their finger scissors, and MXM, who are like with one finger, they're trying to do their touch the tips, and it's like scissors
Yeah.
versus tips. And I remember even the commentators said, I mean, it was something along the lines of, "What do you do when you've got tips versus scissors?" And somebody was like, "Cut the tips off," and we were like, "Oh
Yeah,
no, no, no,
Shivani,
no, no,
and I
bad
think
Shivani. There is
I think
not going to be any tip cutting."
I think Shivani like he took himself down a dark and deep rabbit hole because he got quiet after that, and I think somebody was like, "Yeah, right, Shivani." He's like, "Yeah,
Right, right. He thought about what he had said, and he was like, "Oh no,
yeah,
no, no,
yeah,
no."
no, 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 no."
Yeah, so it was insane, and there has to be more MXM versus the Acclaimed down the line because I mean I'm here for it, and I think the entire crowd would be here for it.
Yeah,
And MXM are so over right now, like they are so over, and they've earned it, mind you. Like
I agree. Yeah, yeah,
this isn't a situation where MXM was like, hugely the most popular wrestler ever, and so they're an AEW hire based on that. These guys have taken this opportunity and polished it up to shine like a piece of gold.
yeah,
And it's all about the promos they've been cutting, the very funny skits they've been doing, the over the top characters they're portraying, and their in ring work has been outstanding. So all mad props to MXM.
yeah,
And thank you, AEW, for giving these two men a chance to showcase what they are capable of. That unfortunately the WWE either didn't have the space and time for, or didn't see the potential in at the time.
yeah. That's a
By all
shame.
means, it's to all of our benefit that MXM has been given this opportunity, and they are really taking it and running with it.
Yeah. uh, Shortly after that, I think everybody's favorite tag team was next, the Outrunners,
Oh,
and
my favorites. I'm as much as MXM is giving me life, Outrunners are giving me life.
yeah,
Like here is a tag team that kind of like who was it? The Iron Savages before. Here's a tag team that was basically just a jobber tag team. and their whole shtick is basically that they are like 80s wrestlers. Like they look like they are some sort of renegade DNA from Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage that came together and formulated modern day 80s wrestlers.
Yeah.
And their whole aesthetic and their look is like 80s wrestlers, and it's so great. I mean,
Yeah.
even their names, you've got Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum. And
Yeah.
it's so good.
It doesn't
It
get
is
any
so
better.
good.
Yeah.
And remember how earlier I said that it's noteworthy that the Kingdom came out to like no pop? The Outrunners,
Yeah.
when they hit the stage, the crowd blew up.
They lost it. Yeah.
They absolutely lost it. They were loud for them coming in, and then the Outrunners came in and started like punchy fisting and like laying out everybody who was in the ring, like with the punches, and then they did like tandem body slams, and then
Yeah.
they got a tag team elbow drop, and the crowd is losing it. They're
Yeah.
eating it up. They are absolutely here for these Outrunners.
Yeah.
And this is like the most organic thing I have ever seen. The Outrunners sort of became more over than maybe they were positioned to be. And because
Yeah.
the crowd resonated with it, like the Outrunners merchandise is selling and people are cheering for them, and it's like, why? These guys are like 80s, mockery slash homage jobbers. But the crowd has decided that the Outrunners are everything. And
Yeah.
so they are getting a push in
And I'm here for
AEW.
it. I'm
And
here
I
for
love that.
it. Mm-hmm.
I love that, like, instead of, unfortunately, I feel like in the WWE, they'd be like, cool story, bro, but this is the slot we have allotted you. Do
Yeah.
not step your toe out of line. And it's been a complaint over the years that, the WWE it tries to tell us who we should like instead of listening to who we do like. And this is the opposite of that. This is where you had some relative jobbers that just showed up enough and stuck to their shtick enough and got over with the fans, and now they're getting a push. And I am here for it.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah. And speaking of getting no pop, shortly after the Outrunners showed up,
Yeah.
grizzled young vets came to the
Oh
ring.
my
And
Did they come to the ring?
And
I
you
believe
know what
they
happens.
attempted to come to the ring. I
You
think
know what
they didn't make
happens
it.
when you see grizzled young vets coming.
When you see us coming, grind
Make-
your corn.
Bake your biscuits.
No, wait. I think we're getting it wrong. What is it? When you see us coming, grit your teeth.
Yeah,
What does
something like
that mean?
I
What does
don't
that
know.
even mean? It seems like they just picked the most random thing to say. Like, when you see us coming, look both ways before crossing the street. It's what is grit my teeth? Why would I want to grit my teeth? Are you trying to
Yeah.
drum up business for Dr. Britt Baker? What is your angle here? Why do I need to grit my teeth because I see you coming?
When you see us coming, say hello.
Be friendly.
When you see us coming, buy us lunch.
buy us lunch. when you see us coming, tie your shoes. It's
Like, huh?
put the cap on the toothpaste. It's
When
so
you see us
random.
coming, call your mother.
It's so random. Grit your teeth. I just don't get it. Like, whatever they intend, like, is that like a British euphemism that I'm just not familiar with? But to me, it just seems like they picked a random phrase. Like they opened up a fortune cookie and it said, grit your teeth. And they were
Yeah.
like, "That's it, boom." You
They
know,
were like mind blown. Like that's it. That,
nailed it.
that
We
that's
now
what that's
have
what we've
our.
been looking for.
That's the catchphrase we have been looking for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's up there in the ranks of what you gonna do, brother, when the 20-inch pythons and Hulkamania runs wild on you.
Maybe,
Um,
people still say that, I don't
no,
think 20, 30 years from now people are going to go, "Oh, remember grit your," like nobody's going to nah.
no, and that was the joke. I meant it ironically. Like it's that
Oh,
I mean, watch out,
sorry.
Rock, because instead of saying "finally the Rock has come back," people are going to be
No,
like, "When
no.
you
Grit
see
your
us
teeth.
coming, grit your teeth."
Yeah.
I mean, it is the catchphrase to end all catchphrases. Like everybody else just needs to go home now because the grizzled young veterans have won at pro wrestling. That's
I
it. They're done. We can go home now. We've solved it. Pro wrestling is solved for generations to come.
I think I wouldn't be so like hard on this if they wouldn't have said it like 50 times in one night. Like like they really wanted people to grit their fucking teeth, man. Like they are about that teeth grit. Like
Right? Like,
they
are you guys
they
like?
wrote a sonnet about the fucking teeth gritting.
It makes me wonder, like, if we looked into it, are we gonna find that the grizzled young veterans are running a business selling like mouth guards, and so they're trying
The
to like get everybody to need a mouth guard now?
the moonlight doth shine on my bloody gum line, for I doth gritteth my teeth.
Doth gritteth thine teeth. Yeah.
Uh,
So suffice it to say, the grizzled young vets didn't even get out of the entrance ramp before
no.
FTR intercepted them and beat them back into the back, which also subsequently took FTR right out of the Casino Gauntlet match. Like,
Yeah.
FTR and grizzled young vets are gone.
They have left the chat.
Um, they have left the chat,
To
and
this day, legend has it that they are still back in the back beating each other up. To this day,
and gritting teeth.
FTR saw them coming and beat that ass. And so to this day, that's where they are.
Yep, and I I think the way it went after that is that Mansoor and like most of the people that were kind of out on the floor at ringside are watching, looking at like FTR and the Grizzled Young Vets, because I think everybody stopped to look to see who was coming, and then they stopped to watch as FTR essentially took themselves and the Grizzled Young Vets out of the match.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, Mansoor is kind of standing on the top rope, and Turbo Floyd runs up the outside, like on the apron, and grabs a hold of Mansoor and superplexes him to the outside onto
Yeah.
basically everybody else in the match. So, like, he
Yeah.
bowling pinned the entire cast that was out there right at that moment, everybody in the match. And that gets a huge pop for the Outrunners. Like,
Yep.
oh my goodness. And so
The Power
the
Slam neck
Outrunners
breaker
really
finish.
get. Huh?
I was just the Power Slam neck breaker finish by the Outrunners. Uh,
Yeah,
but they didn't get the pin, of course.
no.
They
But
looked good.
it was good for the Outrunners. They got a nice strong showing in this match, and I was really pleased with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, yes, after the superplex, the Outrunners sort of get into the ring, and I'm trying to remember who they did the power slam neck breaker to. I think it might have been one of the members of the Kingdom, but it ended up getting broken up by Vincent.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's see. I'm trying to I can't remember exactly how we got here, but Fletcher and Osprey are back in the ring. Um, Who did they pin? Was it Dante?
Um,
I,
yeah, because after Vincent broke up the pin, it sort of became a showcase of Top Flight, who I don't think we acknowledged had made their way to the ring, but Top Flight did end up coming to the ring. Um,
yeah.
and so now with Top Flight there, you've got Darius and Dante Martin in there hitting their big aerial maneuvers, and you've
Yeah.
also still got the Kingdom in there. And so after like a whole lot of back and forth between like, since there's a lot of people still left in wreckage outside the ring, it's
Hmm.
whoever pops in from time to time after they've recovered from outside.
Yeah.
And so you have like Darius with a big dive over the top, and then like a shotgun drop kick to Vincent. And then you've got Bennett of the Kingdom hitting a pile driver, and like a huge sheer drop brainbuster to Bennett after that by Kyle Fletcher. You know, it's just one more high spot after high spot. And I think there was a Hurricane Rana driver by Dante.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Um, and there's
Then
this
an
just sort of this
Enziguri.
back and forth between Top Flight and like Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah.
And at one point, let's see, at one point, Dante is going for the crossover frog splash to Kyle Fletcher, who's been laid out.
Hmm.
And Fletcher gets the knees up and just sort of hangs on to Dante. And then out of nowhere
Yeah. Literally out of nowhere.
comes Will Ospreay flying in from one of the corners with a hidden blade to the back of Dante while he's being held down by Fletcher, who is, you know, he's draped over Fletcher's knees and he's trying to get away, so he's got his head up when Ospreay comes and just elbows him in the back of the head with the hidden blade. And that, you know, he then goes limp in Fletcher's arms, allowing Fletcher to sort of roll him up, and that's how they won. And so the winners of the tag team casino gauntlet end up being Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay, the tag team that was formulated earlier in the episode. So now we are going to have a big tag team championship match between the Young Bucks, Kyle Fletcher, and Will Ospreay. And I'm not going to lie, with the acrobatic stylings of the Young Bucks and the similarly kind of hybrid high flying and power styles of Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, we are all in for, no pun intended, we're in for a heck of a match between those two teams. It's just going to be nothing but way over the top high spots, I predict.
Yeah, I honestly, if I were to look at how uh, wrestling stories normally go, then I could make a pretty safe prediction about who would win the match. But AEW doesn't necessarily follow that particular formula sometimes. Uh, and they are known to surprise me more than
Yeah.
other wrestling promotions. Also, because of who the Young Bucks are going against, I honestly can say that I don't know who's going to come out the victor on this. And if Osprey and oh my God, come on, brain, you can do it. If Osprey and Fletcher uh don't win, then the next thing that comes to my mind is I have no idea what they're gonna do for those dudes to not win. You know what I mean? I'm interested to see what happens. I'm here for
Yeah.
it.
I'm also interested in some of the intrigues that played out surrounding this. Because you remember earlier in the evening when Don Callis was with the whole family and Will Ospreay, he was trying to get Ospreay to sign up for this match with Fletcher. You remember that Takeshita was like mean mugging the whole time.
Yes, yeah.
And so part of me
Especially
wonders,
Osprey.
yes. And so part of me wonders if like, is Takeshita upset that Don Callis went outside of the family instead of like asking him to tag
Yeah.
up with Fletcher for the win? Like, so you need Osprey to get a win, but you're my manager. You know, so I'm waiting for Takeshita to just like pop a blood vessel and go off on the fact that, you know, he's not getting, you know, pushed the way he wants to, and, you know, he's irritated and all this stuff. So it makes me wonder if that's a good crack line in the Don Callis family.
You
So
think you think that he would do something to sabotage that match?
it's a possibility. I mean, it's only just the beginnings of like some subversion,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, he's not a fan of Osprey. And I mean, to be fair, Osprey pretty much told the Don Callis family once he kind of got on top that he didn't need him anymore. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was about that because it's Don Callis and his, you know, his family of heels. And it's like, yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. Will Ospreay is bigger than all of you put together, so he doesn't need you anymore.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to win matches by like hitting people in the face with a hammer. So, you know, Osprey making like a very devoted face turn just didn't work out being a part of Don Callis's family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I definitely don't think we've seen the end of that. Like they're definitely telegraphing something, and something
Yeah.
involving Takeshita. So we shall see where that ends up going.
We shall.
It's possible he could sabotage the match as like an act of rebellion, or, you know, maybe
Yeah.
even like, because like, screw you, Osprey, even though it screws the Don Callis family too. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yep. Either way, I'm here for it.
Yeah. And I mean, that casino gauntlet match, and the winners and the potential matches, were the matches that it does set up for Grand Slam. This episode of Dynamite was outstanding.
Top tier.
Overall, I would easily give it a top tier. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't find any major like this match. And lots of them were very, very good.
Yeah. I
So,
agree. Yeah.
well, I think that is our review of AEW Dynamite for this week. It was a banger.
Indeed.
And I just want to thank everybody for listening. And I think we will call that a wrap. And I will go ahead and roll the outro. Thanks again for joining us, everyone.
Bye, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Top Tier Wrestling. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest AEW and WWE news and shows. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. Follow us on social media for updates and to join the conversation. Until next time, everyone, remember, wrestling is always better when it's top tier.